mention it. Thanks for everybody being here. I know it was a little late notice for finding out that we were going to be here. But it's all good. So, invocation. First guy.
Bow your heads with me. God above, we are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes. For each day's duties, for each day's problems, may we be challenged to give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen. Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The things we think, say, and
It is the truth. It is fair to all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Mr. Wayne.
Well, we have two guests today. We have chauffeur, who is David Crabtree's guest, and John Dawson brought his daughter Catherine Dawson.
All right. We already know Catherine as it is, through John, so we know Catherine very well. Deb?
Well, we have two birthdays this week. Walt Howell's birthday is on November 3rd. And Erica Parker's birthday is on November 6th. And we celebrated her 4th anniversary with Gate City Rotary last week. She wasn't here, so we're going to do it. And that's it. That's it.
All right, Polio Plus Initiative. We have got, Kelly's doing the drawing today. So if anyone here, we're going to do it at the end of the meeting. So if anyone hasn't donated $25 or more,
correct.
Now's the time.
And you can just pledge if you just.
Yeah, we will take your word for it.
Walk over
It
and
is
tap
the
me on the
truth.
shoulder. We got 6% of the club that has participated in this, which is amazing.
It is amazing.
Thank you for that, and you still got time. I've got your name right here, ready to throw it in the hat. End of the meeting, we're going to draw.
All right. I don't want to have everybody raise their hand who donated or those who did it, but we are trying to do. We are trying. Raise your hand if you did the name. Raise your hand. Well, I think it'd be more embarrassing if everybody did, and then we didn't have to. But it's just to get. We would really try, or we're trying to strive for 100%, whether it's $5 or whatever. So if you haven't given, we'll take the pledge. We're taking pledges this morning. So $5 minimum, $25 more gets you in the drawing at an awesome weekend at Grandover. Good deal. We got some exciting announcements. Who wants to go first? Pigstock's the big one. Who wants to talk about the? Chip, you want to talk about the Hunter bourbon?
Did you bring any of the iron?
No, I left those in my car. I can go get them. All
right, well, I'll talk about it while you're.
All of them.
Yeah.
We're back up.
All right, so we had a fantastic turnout at Pigstock. We did an excellent job. Our Boston butts didn't want to get quite done enough. Unfortunately, cooking on the cauldron creates a little bit of a problem, but it was not due to the failure of Ralph and Chris, who minded that cauldron all day. They did a fantastic job. You can't create heat where there is no heat, so this is the way that turned out. But we took home second place in chicken. Chris is going to, for the 3rd year in a row, Chris is going to rename his recipe second place chicken. No matter what happens. I think we took second place in chili, is that correct? And 3rd place in ribs. And the big prize overall, the one for the club that raised, or the team that raised the most money, we took People's Choice for the 5th year in a row, undefeated in money raising. So
That's
anyway,
huge.
we raised a ton of money. So. We had tremendous participation. I know we're down on attendance a little bit today, but everybody who participated in some way in Pigstock, please raise your hand. I want you to see this. All right? Great thing to bring the club together and have some fun. Thank you. Thank everybody who participated and helped out. We had a blast.
Chip, thank you. I know you put in probably more.
Oh, and one other thing. Greensboro's in trouble. I figured out what we're gonna do for next year. So I can feel that trophy slipping back this way, guys. I'm sorry it got away from us.
All right, any other announcements? I know we probably may have some happy dollars in this shit.
Sure enough, barbecue cooker.
All right, James, how about football pool?
Yes, sir, Ralph. So I miss Chrissy when she's not here. She's been a great partner in doing this, but we did a little cyber handoff, so I have the results here. And for the Dud Award, it's a streak of sorts, and he's not here, and I don't know who the runner-up is. So Danny. So I was actually going to give Danny Farley a referral to a dentist for all the milk duds that are pulling the trash. But we won't do that. So second place was a tie with 18 correct, so it was really good. Both picked Paige to win, there's a surprise.
Yeah, right.
And so it came down to the points. And second place, runner-up, third place would be Dennis Marcotte with 60. He guessed 60. I think it was a 42-0 route. Is that what the Grimsley Page was? Actually, it was Dennis's idea to put Grimsley Page on the list. So I enjoyed that compliment from Lisa, so thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
So, let's see. Actually, I did that wrong, Dennis, so I'm going to have to.
Give it back.
So I'm going to owe you a bag. Walt got second place with 50 points. Okay. So I owe you a little bit. And I'm not sure if it's first time winner, but this is really good. So Walt picked every NFL game correct. That was pretty good.
Wow.
And our winner only missed one NFL game and had 19 correct. And that is Guy Rabondo. Chrissy wants to do a year-end kind of winner to promote consistency and participation. We had over 20 participate last week. So please fill them out, and we're going to consolidate all the results for the year and have a year-end prize.
Awesome. Thank you, James. All right, good deal. Tis the season. I've been talking to a lot of people on the phone and meeting a lot of people this week and seeing that a lot of people are sick. So that's actually what our category is this week. And since we do have a start of the whole family over here, we will go back to the Nazis. Nazis. The Hunts. The Hunts and the Nazis. All right, we'll ask the Hunts, since y'all have a smaller group. Tell me something you only do when you get sick. We'll play. All right, thank you. Tell me something you only do when you're sick. Did y'all catch that up there?
Yeah. What's our turn?
I'll give you credit for that math. Ding, ding, ding.
What was your answer? What was the question you wanted?
Stay nap.
Something
you do only when you're sick. There you go.
What was the answer? What was the answer?
We haven't given one yet.
Got it.
We're getting ready to take meds. Number 3 answer, take medicine. Good job. Guy, what do you do when you're sick? What? Eat soup. Ding, ding, ding. All right.
How about binge watch?
Y'all want to give it to him? Binge watch. Y'all want to give him that's a missed answer.
No, we don't want to give it to him.
I like it when the other team gives them.
No. That would be 2 Rotarians.
That wouldn't be fair. It's not fair to all concerned.
It's not fair at all.
Wouldn't be fair to
Right.
That's a polite way of saying bullshit.
Call your mama. No cigar. Never call your mama. Go to the doctor. Ding, ding, ding. You got 2 answers left. Y'all catch that?
No.
Go to the doctor with her. Home from work. Ding, 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 got one answer. Logan, what you got?
All right, Kathy, it's on you, you're the nurse.
Bitch pissing my.
And Steve Harvey would say, you're in trouble now, guys, with this one.
Take vitamins.
There's a cigar. And one answer left.
One answer left.
Yeah.
Can you read
Tell
us
me
the
something you only do when you get sick.
Can you tell us what has been told already?
Can I do that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm asking the opponent, so.
Steve Harvey would.
Nap, take medicine, eat soup, home from work, and go to the doctor.
How about complain?
Vomit, ding, ding, ding. All right, Bobby, $100.
Happy dollars.
What a great game. I know there's some pent-up demand in here. Tom Phoenix.
That's on video.
Here's a whole lot of money.
All right. We don't do change.
Yeah, but that's okay. After being in business for 30 years, we have sold my company and are merging with a much larger firm, a group called Clark Patterson and Lee. They have offices up and down the East Coast, and so we're going to be part of a much bigger organization. We're the 13th office in their chain, but we're the third biggest office once they add all our staff to their group. So we're really excited. It was announced publicly a couple weeks ago. The Triad Business Journal did a couple of really nice articles about it. Yesterday was closing day, so now it's official. We're now part of Clark Patterson and Lee, and all of us are really, really excited. So.
I got Dan.
120 PD kids. I just wanted to thank you. Guys don't know how hard other clubs struggle for participation for things. I get to watch it with Pigstock and see how difficult it is. And with Kelly hitting 85% participation, virtually everybody in this club has touched Pigstock, and surely children of Vietnam in some way. So I just want to say thank you. And this is why Mike says this is the greatest Rotary Club in the world, because you guys show up. So I just want to say thank you.
Share your story, man.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. The Greensboro Club donated an extra $5,000 to COD yesterday. I went and took it from them. I won their pot. So. On my birthday. Yes. Wow.
One card left.
Well, tell the whole story.
There was one card left.
Bobby Bain invited me in. He said there's one card left. They've drawn 51 cards. So somebody was going out with the money yesterday. So I spent $100. And I was asked not ever to come back to Greensboro Club.
Free makeups for a year.
Yeah.
That is pretty good ROI, Dan. All right, so now that we've had all the happy news, I want to thank everybody who did participate in the Pigstock and come out. But I have some, I'm not sure if it's swag, leftovers, or consolation prizes. I have 2 pair of hot mats with ho 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 on them that turn up at the house. I have a spare Carolina cooler, which I'll gladly keep if somebody doesn't want koozie. I have a slightly chewed upon, I don't think Otto got it, and I have a pretty nice spoon.
I think that might maybe mine.
You think so? Just pass that over to Lisa. Anybody else?
You could have watched it.
Otto watched it, and a pretty nice little umbrella. So if anybody owns that stuff, please see me. Otherwise, I'll just hang on to it until next year. All right. Thank y'all for participating.
Dan.
Rejected.
Great time at Pigstock. Somehow I managed to get all my boys. My wife was camping, the Cub Scouts. There were
So many people there having so much fun. I had a great time. And then Danny runs over with the first aid kit when my 17-year-old knocks down my 12-year-old on the grapple. So Danny to the rescue. But we had a great time, and I'm just so proud of what all you guys are doing, Danny.
Speaking of great clubs, Monday there was 3 of us, Dan and who else was there? Oh, Jeff Tillman.
Yeah.
We were at the Crescent Club, and they, you know, our club was founded from 4 of their members, and now we're about the same size as they are. I was looking at their Paul Harris Society listing. They have 7. We have 13. So that kind of tells you about how great this club is. So we need one more. This is Foundation Month. And so hopefully we'll get that one and we'll double Crescent. So thank you for all you do for our foundation.
How many days to retirement, John?
59.
But my happy dollar is the fact that my daughter came home to spend time with us when she could have just been, you know, lounging on the beach somewhere before she takes off. And on Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock, she flies out of Norfolk for Naples, Italy. Wow.
Danny, one more.
Jeff?
This is happy dollar for, we were sitting at the Crescent meeting Monday, and the word got out that the Queen of Hearts was up to $4 grand, and Dan said, I'm gonna go to that meeting. That is a man that follows through on his promise.
You mean you won't fail to come pick up the check?
For a 3rd year in a row, Michael Myers has attracted over 1,000 trick-or-treaters to the Harrell House.
Wow.
Oh, and start fundraising.
I'm going next.
Any more?
Yeah, I got one. This is for Kelly Harrell giving away 1,000 pieces of candy.
Danny came wrapped with
Well, I hope nobody's offended. You know, Grandpappy will say damn near anything, but he told me the other day that he got his polygrip and his preparation H tubes mixed up. And Grandmammy said he's been talking like an ass.
Grandpappy, we have a pastor in the house. Okay, I'm going to take ownership for the late announcement for relocating to the proximity. That is on me, and I'm so appreciative of Tony for getting the word out, and appreciate all you guys showing up even with the late announcement on that. So I'm going to give you an early announcement. Next week, we're going to be here again. Yeah. One more time. And that is it for 2017. We'll be back at the OM the rest of the year. So there is no shortage of stories in the news that are they're just sorrow. There's disaster. There's just sick stuff in the news. But today we have a program. I'm so glad you all are going to be here. You are going to leave. You're going to enjoy this, and it's going to be a wonderful program. I'm so glad that David Crabtree, our very own David Crabtree, agreed to tell us about something that he is passionate about. And he doesn't need a lot of introduction. You know, David has pastored the Calvary Church here in Greensboro for 32 years. One thing I didn't know until recently, David was born and grew up the first 15 years in Canada, and then moved to Des Moines, Iowa when he was 15 years old. He moved here in 1985 to begin pastoring Calvary Church. And I'm just so impressed, you know, when somebody follows through on something that they are passionate about, and you can say, yeah, he's passionate about the church, and so this is easy, but no, this is something I think that comes from his heart. And Hope Night is a mission that he has been led to support and bring light to a cycle of hopelessness
in Africa, and I'm just so impressed by it and so fascinated by it. So I'm going to introduce or present David, who is getting ready to present our program today on Hope Ride.
Thanks, Chip. Everybody seems to be able to hear, so I'll stand. And forgive me for the suit. I know it makes some of you nervous when a preacher shows up in a black suit. You know I don't wear one very often. I'm marrying or I'm burying one or the other when I'm in the suit. If I ever show up at your house in this suit, yeah, something really bad's about to happen. Great to share with you again about Hope Ride. It's a 600-mile bicycle epic I take every year. Founded it about 5 years ago, and I've had some friends to help me along the way. First of all, I have to thank my wife, who's here, Sherry. Would you just stand for a moment? Those of you who have not met her. When we got married, Sherry heard me preach. We were desperate. We were desperately poor. I made $8,500 my first year in ministry, and you know, we didn't have much money, but I felt like I really needed some books. I needed to stretch. I needed to grow if I was going to be able to communicate. And after my wife heard me preach, she said, "Just buy books. We can get by on beans, but just please buy books." And so she's always given me license to build a library, and I love that about her. And the other thing is she's always given me license to follow some dreams that have, some of them have borne fruit beyond my wildest imagination. And Hope Ride is one of those. Also to Chuck Furr, who's been my workout partner for over 30 years now, and we've done everything from running to racquetball to Hope Ride, to cycling, and he's just an incredible friend, but one of the teammates, and so Chuck was able to make it. The other guys are in Florida. Some of the other guys are in Florida today doing an Ironman, so they couldn't be with us today. But I want to thank also past presidents for their sponsorship, Chip and others who have just been constant encouragement. Chip, and some of you who have just been so encouraging. And also, Dan is just such an inspiration with what he does with children in Vietnam. It drives you. It drives you to go a little higher and dig a little deeper. Let me just run a little video for us, and then I hope you'll be able to hear this. We've got some pretty low-rent technology, but we'll give it a shot.
My name is Janix Massey. I am the community relations manager. I'm working for Richer Generation. The main aim of Richer Generation is mainly to teach kids about the word of God. Richer Generation came into our age or in this area. It's like many kids did not know who God is, who Jesus is. But now it's like most of the kids, they know, they believe in Jesus, they know who Jesus is, they know who God is.
Our Bride's become much more than just an event. It's become a platform and a voice to a lot of the people who do not have a voice in Zambia.
I've seen Christian flags along the side of the road.
We started coming across groups of children with these white Christian flags that they had made themselves. Flag after flag after flag, as children came to the road and they started cheering, and people just everywhere, smiling, waving, clapping, shouting, "Help Pride, help Pride," as the cyclists came by.
And they just kept coming out, and the more we saw, the larger the crowds were, and then they started chanting, "Hope Ride, Hope Ride, Hope Ride,"
which to me indicated that the gospel was being taught and was being brought to that community and those children, and that was extremely uplifting.
And look what the Lord has done. We got off the bikes after all of the suffering and all of the pain, and every bit of it was worth it.
It's tough sitting there. It's tough being on the bike. It's tough riding for 6 hours. It was tough in the wind yesterday. But I don't know. The milestones seem to
when you find yourself in a place that is indescribable, a place that is really kind of transcendent, it's, you just can't help but wonder that your life is not guided by a destiny bigger than anything that you can make out of yourself. 5 years ago, I found myself in this tiny Zambian village. It began one of the most exciting chapters of my life, and this picture marks the beginning really of Hope Ride. One village, a few children in Zambia, desperate need. The overwhelming nature of the need, children being eaten by crocodiles, no clean water, disease, incredibly low birth rates and survival rates. Walking into a place that was just so very dark. I was overwhelmed and wondering what in the world I was there for, because I'm a pastor. I pastor a church here in North Carolina. What business do I have in Zambia, where for the most part I don't speak their language, didn't know their culture, even to begin in their culture. You talk about somebody from the outside just stepping in. I was invited along. I went with my friend Jacques, and about the third day I was so overwhelmed with what I saw, so overwhelmed with the poverty, so overwhelmed with what was happening with little 11 and 12-year-old girls, being a father of 3 daughters, just so blown away by the whole thing. I turned to Jacques in frustration and I said, Jacques, what in the world am I doing here? I'm not trained for this. I'm just a local church pastor. I don't know where to start. What am I doing here? And in that moment, Jacques turned to me and he said, well, Pastor, you don't see anybody else here, do you? And that moment changed my life. And that's what we're about, is people stepping into places where we don't always have the skills, we don't always have the abilities, but if we're willing to help, if we're willing to reach, if we're willing to go, if we're willing to give, if we're willing to bleed a little bit, we can make a difference. We can go far beyond what we ever imagined that we could do. So I decided to do what I could do, and I could ride a bicycle. A couple years later, after that initial village, this is Jacques and I sitting on the riverbank. This is about 3 years into Hope Ride, and by now we've built about 50 wells, and we had about 20 children's churches going, and we had 2 bases that we'd established along the Zambezi and Zambia. We were sitting out by the river as the drill was drilling in the background, just over the hill. The drill is pounding away, we're putting down another well. And in that moment, we were talking about when Hope Ride started back in that little village with those kids. And Jacques said this to me. He said, there are moments of obedience that are so fragile, if you miss them, they turn to dust in your hands. I believe that. I believe there are moments of destiny in our lives, and they are, the way he said it has struck me, so fragile. If you miss it, it won't come around again. This whole idea that, well, it'll all come around again, I got to tell you, that's a Disney movie. That's not necessarily the truth. So you have to see the moment. When you feel the moment, you have to step out, and you have to go, you have to give, you have to do what you can. This is my 2017 team. Man, am I proud of these guys. The guy on the far left is Matt Clancy with E3 here in town, endurance training. Next to him is Eric Morris. Eric is a 20-year-old kid, one of the cockiest little kids you'd ever meet in your life. And he first started to talk to me about going on Hope Ride, and I immediately got him on a bicycle, took him out, and just absolutely wailed on him. Just wailed on him. Had him, I wish he was here today, I'd be saying the exact same thing, and he would tell you it's the truth. Had him almost in tears, and I thought, that's the last we'll see of that little whippersnapper. So he disappeared off the scene. I didn't even see him in church anymore. He was just gone. I don't know what happened to him. I thought I'd maybe killed him. And about 9 weeks later, I get a text from him. He says, hey, I want to ride with you again. And I thought, coming back for more. Come see me. Bring your A game. So he showed up, and he took me out, and he had trained. He had got a training program, and he had killed himself at 20 years old. He'd killed himself for about 9 weeks. He took me out and absolutely wiped the floor with me. From that point on, he stayed on his training program, and that kid he's now looking at getting involved in a college program with cycling and possibly even a scholarship. But he is one incredibly talented rider. Next to him is Matt Rand, who runs our facilities at the plant. But Matt Rand is a master organizer, military guy. You talk about somebody who can straighten everyone out and get all your kit right. Matt is just invaluable to our team. Then Chris Jackson was a new rider this year, and Jeff Burke, and yours truly, and then Chuck Furr, who I introduced to you earlier. A real band of brothers. we're really proud of this. This is our custom trailer. This was built for us in South Africa. And it has a refrigeration unit built into it so that while we're out there we can keep bottles cold and that type of thing, which is really, really great. But it's truly equipped. It's first rate all the way around, and we've desperately needed this. So this lives in South Africa now and is used for Hope Ride, but it's also used for a number of the kids around the Shikwaru area in South Africa who, because of Hope Ride, have got into cycling. Now they're on mountain biking teams, and so our Hope Ride trailer's out there getting them back and forth from events. And so it's kind of a collateral thing, which was really kind of a blessing we never counted on. But it's really off the trailer where Hope Ride happens, 600 miles in 6 days at about 19, this year at about 19 miles per hour. We were a little slower because we had headwinds for 6 days straight. We did not have a day where we had a tailwind. Last year we had a tailwind and we had a day where we did 22.5 miles an hour. It was wonderful. We had dreams. All last year we had dreams of going back, catching that south wind and letting it blow us all the way from South Africa to Zambia. And we even prayed about it, and God is still laughing over, he's laughing over this one, because it absolutely blistered us. 2 or 3 of the days we had up to 20 mile an hour headwind sustained. That's all it did all day long, and so I have to really applaud the guys. They did a great job. There are a few hills out there. This is on day 6, so you've already got 500 miles in your legs, and you've been 3 days on flat roads drafting, so your body gets into that rhythm and you get used to it. And when you turn into Zambia, you go through a very impoverished area that tells you you're in a whole new world. You take a left turn and you start hitting hills like this. And for 78 miles, this is what you do. You go up and you go down and you go up and you go down. And so the last day, which is a shorter day at 78 miles, that last day hurts. It really hurts more than any other days. You never know what's coming next. I'm the directionally challenged guy there that is looking generally the wrong way. I've almost killed us twice turning the wrong way in traffic because over there everybody rides on all the traffic is on the wrong side of the road, the left side of the road. We had a Brit with us, and after about day 2, after I almost turned us into a lane of traffic, I told Chris, I said, when you see an intersection, I got the Brit, and I said, we're putting you right up front. So the British guy did all of our turns and got us through. But you rarely know what's coming next in Africa. I really struggle with that left side of the road thing. You see the animals there that are strapped to the bars, and you'll see on some of the other pictures, some guys have little elephants stuffed in. We were on day 2, and Chris, my British rider, who's incredible guy. Chris said at one of the stops, it was a gas station, and there were these little stuffed animals. He said, I'm going to buy one of those little stuffed animals, I'm going to carry it, and then I'm going to give it to you, and when you go back, you can raffle it off, and you can get some money for it. I said, that's a brilliant idea. We rode a little longer, and he said, everybody needs to carry one of those little animals, and we'll raffle them all off. And so pretty soon, we had a load of animals, and guys had them on their bars and had them stuffed in their back pockets. We really looked like a bunch of doofuses out there. But anyways, we loaded all the little animals on the bike and started riding across Africa. And I have to tell you what came out of that. When I got back to the States, I let it be known in our church that we were going to be holding a raffle. Threw it out on Facebook. These animals have biked through these 4 nations raising money for Hope Ride, connected it to a link on Hope Ride. And around here in Greensboro, I had several people who offered $100 for an elephant, or $50 for a tiger. Had $200 for one of the little tigers that we had on there. And then I got an email from a lawyer I know out in Dallas, Texas. He said, I have 5 children. I want 5 elephants, $1,000 a piece.
Wow.
I said, that's really amazing. And so I sent him the elephants and took his money. Then the last animal we have is this little tiger. The guy who got the tiger at $200, when he came in, I told him the story. I said, can you believe that? He said, you got $1,000 for the elephants? He said, yeah. I said, I can't give you $200 for the tiger. He gave me $1,000 for the tiger. So that one idea basically covered the cost of dragging a Brit around the world. And more. I'm teasing about Chris. He's an amazing athlete and amazing guy. Sometimes we run into a bit of traffic. This is one of my favorite shots from the trip, and I don't know exactly how they got it. I do know that that front leg is Chuck first, and I think the second one's mine. But I love the angle and just to look at it. I'm still not sure exactly how that car got between us like that, but they definitely captured a great shot. And then there's these fellas. When you ride through the Chobe Wilderness, you are riding into elephant country. And we have never gone that we haven't seen elephants. This year we didn't see the great herds of elephants, but we saluted a few old friends. Actually, this is a pretty young bull. But they were all around us. Later, when we looked at some of the drone footage, you see the bikes going by, and in the drone footage, just behind some bushes, there'd be 4 or 5, but the pachyderms are out there in force. We also stayed at the place called Elephant Sands in the middle of Botswana, where if you ever go there, you have to stay there. You have to sleep. You have to sleep in one of those huts surrounded by wild elephants. It is just a great experience. Great experience. They don't. Well, no, I'm going to leave that alone. No. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes it's wiser. Well, you never go anywhere in Africa where somebody or something's not watching you. And so we caught these zebra out in the field. But if you want to see wildlife, I guess you could go on this trip and see nothing because Africa is so vast. But I have never, in the 4 years that I've been between Zambia and South Africa, I have never not seen just incredible wildlife. I think it was on the first Hope ride that we came over a little bit of a rise, and all of a sudden we were surrounded by elephants on every side. And Chuck, you'll remember as they began to, up ahead of us, they began to come across the road. 6 or 8 of them in full gallop, coming over the top of the road, looked like tall sailing ships, just sailing. And we haven't seen that since, but maybe next year we'll see that again. On day 5, we were just outside of camp in the Tenga. We were just getting started and we came across a grass fire. And the guy in our lead vehicle had stopped and run off with the camera on the side and captured this shot. And when I saw this incredible shot, I thought of the scripture in Isaiah that says, "We went through fire and through water, but you brought us out to rich fulfillment." And I have to say that's what Hope Ride is all about. When it's all over, when you're all done and you've been through the fire and you've been tested a little bit, you come out on the other side. The fulfillment is it's just amazing. I love this shot of Matty. This is Matt Clancy from with E3 here in town. I keep this one, and I like it particularly because those green bottles, those glowing green bottles. He had to have something like radioactive in there, or something. I tease him about it. He still hasn't told us what he put in his bottles to make them glow like that. But I'm really kind of suspicious that maybe some new type of doping or something. I don't know. Every team has someone who sets the fashion bar high. Everyone has an individual. I threw this picture in for Justin and for Mike, whose socks generally kind of rock the room here at Rotary. When Chris stepped out with the pink socks and the pink hat, I can't say that I offered him any great encouragement, but after I got $6,000 for the animals that he recommended, I'm wearing pink socks. For the whole trip, I'm wearing pink socks.
You guys all have a particular gait about you. It's as if you've been riding.
You noticed that, did you? Yeah.
Look, y'all walk in step too.
We are. I wish I could say that we planned this, but it's not. After 100 miles on the bike, it doesn't matter how many times after the 100 miles on the bike, you do walk funny. I'm sorry, but it's just the way it works. One of my favorite shots, though, the contrast especially with Chris, because it's just perfect. Look at him. He didn't even strip off the jacket. He had to be different, but he was great fun to have along. I love this picture because this captures the whole spirit of Hope Ride, with smiles and laughter, and it is probably one of the most enjoyable, connective band of brothers experience that you can have. And so this is what it looked like for us single day. And you can see the $1,000 Tiger there on Chris's bike. But we really created a bond. When we got past the border in Zambia, we were about 65 miles from the base, but our well drilling, which started at the base, has now moved out to our range is about 70, 80 miles. And we're going deeper and deeper into the bush. We have a brand new drill that came online this year and a rig that pulls it, and we can go, we've got an 8x8, so we can really get out to places that are, so every place you go in western Zambia is out there, but believe me, where the rig goes, it's really out there. On the road coming into the base, we now have more than 70 children's churches that are established over there. Any children's churches that were close to the road, they knew we were coming that day, and they had kids watching for us. They didn't know what time we'd get there. There's no communication, except, you know, at their children's church, they were told on such and such a day, Hope Ride will be coming. And the leaders of the children's churches helped them to make the white Christian flags, that type of thing, which is kind of cool. But as we begin to make our way into Zambia towards the base, we would see all of a sudden a flag appear in a village and come streaking out. These kids can run. And it would come streaking out, and kids would be coming out of huts and running for all they were worth out to the road and waving the flag. We saw this at least a dozen times in the last 50 miles. But this year we have now passed 7,000 children. In our children's churches, we feed more than 4,000 on a daily basis. And that's kind of rotating because once we get a school up with its sustainable farming, then they're producing enough food we don't have to feed them anymore because they can now sustain it with moringa trees and with some of the crops that we're putting in the ground and the specialists that we send in to train the kids how to grow the food that they can. It's an amazing program. So schools that we were fully supporting as far as feeding 2 years ago are now self-sustaining, and we're supporting new schools, and we're going further and further out, and we've got a great team over there who are doing that type of work. But 5 years ago, there was absolutely nothing in western Zambia. Zip. Nothing. And today we're seeing this type of impact. We had no land, we had no wells, no drill, no boats, no bases, no staff. Absolutely nothing. And it's really kind of humbling, and it's overwhelming to see what has happened with something so silly as a bike ride. Arriving is always a celebration. One of my favorite pictures. Once we let Chris loose on the kids, it was game on. And when we got into the tent, this is the regional chief. I'm sorry for the quality of the picture, but we're listening intently because the regional chief is being interpreted for us there in the middle. This guy is, he's the big deal. His word is law in the entire region. Whatever he says goes, and nothing makes him smile bigger. And I've got to tell you, it's a smile that will light the world. Nothing makes him smile bigger than knowing we've drilled another well in one of his villages. And he's been out there for the drilling of the well, and the water comes up, and he's seen what we're doing. He watches that clean water coming out of the ground. It's a game changer for the villages, and he showed up, and we were just so glad to have him show up that day and meet all of the guys, and it was really a great celebration. When the ride is done, I love this, we were walking back out to the road, and that's Matt with the flag. The kids gave us the flags, and so every one of the guys brought home one of the flags. Funny story, there's a real shortage in building supplies and that type of thing over there. So one of our leaders over there saying, how are we going to put these flags on poles? He actually scavenged the poles that stand out in front of the flaps that come out over some of the makeshift tents and huts that we have on the base. So we had to have those poles back so they could basically put the tent back up afterwards. But they wanted to put on the show. And this is why. You want to know? You want to know what the greatest moment of your life is? It's that moment you realize that you've changed the life of a child. There's nothing that comes close to this. And I've got 100 pictures of 100 kids at now 100 wells. We just finished our 100th well. And seeing them, these are children that a few years ago would have had to go down to the Zambezi, where even last year, still with all of the well drilling, last year we lost 20 children on a 7-kilometer stretch of the Zambezi River to Crocs, going down to the river to either wash or get water. So we've still got a long way to go. But when you see this, it makes it all worth it. Our last day always ends, we get on the pontoon boat that we use for some of the ministry we do up and down the river. We put everybody on the pontoon boat and we go out and enjoy a sunset on the Zambezi. And this was shot, I believe this picture came from my iPhone. The Zambezi is one of the most beautiful and treacherous places in the world. You talk about contrast. It's a river where you just want to jump in, but you don't. You're rolling along and you see a huge rock up ahead of you, and then the rock moves and you realize it's a hippo, and so you slow down and you get way out of the way because they're pretty mean. And it's just it's a wonderful and brutal, incredible place. I get to take Sherry there right after Christmas Day. She's going to be able to go for the first time. I can't wait to show her this, and I wish I could take all of you there. Because if I could take all of you there, I know this beyond a shadow of a doubt, I could get all of your money. Every last buck. And I know you all think preachers just do that anyways, but I'd give it all away. I'd give it all away. I'd stay in the same house and I'd give all your money away. Love you guys. Anyways, I couldn't sleep very well that last night for whatever reason. I just couldn't sleep, and so I woke at about 4, went across the compound. This is our southern base on the Zambezi in Zambia, and I sat down. This is about 60 feet up above the river. That little deck off to the side, there's a little, like a feeding area off to one side, and then we've got a fire circle on the other end. I'm at the fire circle. I arrived really early, stirred the fire to life, put on some coffee, and this was my morning view. Absolutely breathtaking. I just sat there and stared and thought, how lucky am I to be able to see something like this? Well, I wasn't alone for long. Simba, who runs our base, on the left, and then Matt came out, and then Chris was out. Before long, it got noisy out there, but we got to watch an incredible sunrise, an incredible sunrise. If I was selling my days, there's nobody in the room who could afford to buy this one from me. This one is priceless. And I didn't have to slide into the saddle again that day. The next morning, it began at 3 a.m. We drive 5 hours over the most horrific roads you can imagine to Livingston. It should take 2 hours to get to Livingston. It takes 5. And there we're going to catch our plane to Johannesburg, but whenever we take the guys through Livingston, they've got to see Vic Falls. Now, this doesn't do it justice because it's the dry season when we're there in August. But I have been there when that entire right face, you can't even see it for the thundering of the water and for the mist that rises up. And you can see it's in the gully down there. You can see there's still some significant water coming over. But you see that if you look around at Livingston, if you look around at Vic Falls, you'll find a rainbow somewhere.
Give us an idea
every time.
how far between the surface, the top and the bottom.
You'll have to Google it. I'm so terrible with those. You wouldn't want to jump off it.
Not even on a wet day.
I don't know that Google could tell you what the drop is. It's magnificent, and this picture really doesn't do it. It really doesn't do it justice. So it's November, and the August road is already calling me. I love this place, going back to this place. I'll be back after Christmas. I've got 20 wells to tag over there, people who have given wells. I'm going to be and Sherry's going to be with me, and we're going to be headed out into the bush to attach those tags to the wells, send pictures, let people know what we've done. I'm going to lead this team next year as God will give me the strength, because I believe we can change the world. We can change the world one child at a time. Last thing I'll tell you is giving this calendar year to date, giving to Hope Ride just passed $200,000. It's amazing, isn't it, what God can do with something so silly as a bike ride.